7,000 flowers in total, 5,000 tulips in the field. The goal for next year is to make more than 20,000 euros in revenue. This is a technical video explaining all the steps of how I grow my flowers and how I will reach this goal. So hold on tight. This is Stato Brado Farm. Let's see everything we need to reach this goal, and I'll tell you all the steps and the whole story and why we've come to this point. It's my first year doing this, and I plan to plant many flowers. So, a fantastic goal. I would say let's take a step back. Let's understand where we're starting from, the needs. I'll show you how I did everything later. In recent years, I've achieved great results, but I realized that what really helps my farm a lot is diversifying. So in the first year, we started completely and only with vegetables, olive oil, and wine. As the years went by, we realized that especially the vegetables needed to be slightly scaled down. This is because they have a series of issues, especially since we don't do single varieties, and they require a lot of work hours, and the profit isn't always there. My farm is young, so it doesn't have much history behind it yet. But right from the start, I realized that the best trick to make a business like mine work is to diversify. So being able to have many different products that increase productivity on the farm, but above all, can balance out the bad seasons that we sometimes have. Now, at various stages, I realized that hosting events in the field is one of the best things we can do. But hosting events in the field means giving an experience to the people who are here. So this year I want to invest in growing flowers. Mind you, it's an experimental way to start doing a certain type of agriculture. Also opening up to new customers, so to florists, to people who can come pick up flowers, the product, but also to people who come to the field to pick flowers themselves. So let's go grow tulips together. I made myself a chart with all the varieties and when to plant each variety. Now, there are 3 different types we can plant. The bulb, the corm, and the rhizome, they are completely different. It's written here basically, so the difference varies. What changes? What changes is that, for example, bulbs need to be planted deep. You see, I've already marked the depths. I've done my research, 12, 15 centimeters. Why? Because otherwise, if it gets too cold, they'll get damaged. For ranunculus, we plant it in January or February and place it higher. Otherwise, it won't sprout and will get damaged. You really have to be careful. Now, the problem is how to plant it. For example, tulips at 12, 15 centimeters. So now let's go study various methods. Because, for example, these here are tulips by eye, if I'm not mistaken. In fact, these here, I took 1,000 tulips, while these here are the organ ones. The freesia that has now opened up, damn it, I won't plant it now. We need to go make some selections first. What are we going to plant now? We can plant the anemones at a depth of 5 to 7 centimeters. So the first ones we'll do are the anemones. This process starts in August. In August, we work the soil with the rotary tiller. So we work the ground quite deeply. Before the tulips, there were watermelons. So we started by cleaning the soil well with the shredder. Here's a detail. Maybe I should have cleaned the soil much better by making an extra pass with the shredder. Then I used the rotary tiller to work the soil as deeply as possible. We reached about 25-30 centimeters. In some areas we can go a little deeper, in some areas a little less. This is because I wanted to make sure the soil was excellently worked. But above all, I wanted to avoid water stagnation. In fact, we're not just planting random flowers, but specific flowers which are generally bulbs. So the risk of rot in a season when it rains a lot is very high. Then we let the soil rest for about 15 or 20 days, since the clods weren't yet in ideal condition. Unfortunately, a series of rains also came, which made all our work a bit more complicated. Then we went over it with the rotary harrow, and here too there's something particular. Looking back, I would have crumbled it much more. Maybe I left it a bit too coarse. Since we had to plant the bulbs deep, maybe it wasn't such a wise idea. At the end of everything, we went to install our sheets. As you can see, we're starting to lay out the first sheets. This one needs to be split. You pull it like this and then flip it over, so you'll see it'll cover everything. In the middle, we overlap the two sheets. Otherwise, it'll be a festival of weeds. Later, this is going to be a real bloodbath because I'll have to make all the holes, so it's going to take me a while. Oh well, it'll likely be a full day's work. The nice thing about these tarps is that I'll basically keep them for life, in quotes, meaning they last. I think it's 5 years, so at least you can get them done. Now, before we go to pull, since we're talking about long distances to go and pull, we've more or less teamed up. You see this line tucks in a bit, so to keep it from folding the wrong way, we're going to use the stakes. I got a bunch of them. They're 2.5 meters, and you'll see we'll use almost all of them. What are we going to do? We're going to pull over there, but if you put the stake straight like this now, the stake will end up crooked. You need to take the stake and set it slightly. See, wait a second, okay? You set it at a slight angle, okay? Like this, okay? So that as soon as the tarp is pulled, the stake stays straight. See, it stays under tension, so you push it down, and later we'll have to pull it out again anyway. When we pull the top from that side to straighten it, it will go into the right position straight. If you set it straight, it won't work unless you do, like in this case, where you don't put the stake straight, but at an angle. So you put it in like this, and by putting it like this, the stake generally stays. But honestly, it still bends a little. But you can also put it at an angle without any problem at all. We place one about every meter. We don't put it under the irrigation, but we'll put it above the irrigation. With these pipes, we're going to redo what we did here in the greenhouse. It's a convenient system since we can instantly spot leaks. It's much easier later to remove the sheet and put it back because we basically fold and refold the sheet. You hardly lose any irrigation, meaning that I've already seen this year the sheets have worked really well. The irrigation has been excellent, and it's also quite sturdy. Also, by doing it this way, first of all, we put it down after making the holes in the ground. So we don't get it wet, meaning we don't break the irrigation on top, like in this case. And on the other hand, we can go back and fix it. Later, we'll secure all this irrigation with more stakes. What will they do? They'll secure the sheet further. As the trick comes after, you'll see it pulled tight, because as you walk, some natural bulges will form since the soil flattens toward the center. The ground has already been used and is pretty coarse and rough, likely because it's a bit wet underneath, about 10 or 15 centimeters in my opinion. We had already gone over the soil with the rotary tiller, so the ground had been turned over. Anyway, we're going to leave the covers on for 15 days, so you'll see that all this soil will start to crumble when it comes into contact with the sun. Basically, a sort of carbonization of the soil takes place, the one they now refer to as the famous carbonization. Before making the holes, notice that lifting it reveals perfect soil underneath. Go ahead, open it, pull now, put this over that, a bit more, pull this back, then we'll stake it down. Here I have a little strip left, but who cares, right? Lay out all the sheets properly immediately, or gusts of wind will cause problems. Please, let's do the job well and let the soil settle for a moment. Once that's done, we'll make the holes. I think so, but I still need to study a bit more. We will make a set of systems with 1, 2, and 4 passage holes, so we'll put 2, and we'll keep them a bit wider than what is usually done in floriculture. I've seen that, well, it's better to leave them a bit denser because here sometimes there's a bit more stagnation, so we keep them a bit wider apart. Since I don't want to use any herbicides, the tarp was a necessary step because it really reduces a lot of work in the field, especially when the weeds start to grow. Clearly, there are some farmers who use bare soil and use straw. For us, straw is a product that still costs money, so we have to use it, let's say, quite extensively, and it's a much higher cost than the tarp. And above all, the straw has to keep being put back into the soil. And it doesn't guarantee me, let's say, coverage from weeds. I tried this on watermelons this year. It went well, but not great. They require a lot of work and a technique we can use, but not for flowers, in my opinion. So these were the steps. We went and laid out all our sheets, anchored them well to the ground, and did our calculations to leave enough space for the bulbs. We used a torch to burn the sheet instead of cutting it, which allowed us not to fray the sheet and therefore make it last much longer, especially to avoid losing pieces of plastic in the soil in the future. We'll see later that this strategy led to a series of problems. Big ones, but let's move on. I have my nice canister with the nozzle and I'm making little holes for the flowers. I have to make all the holes. I don't know how many I'll make. I think there will be quite a few, but anyway, it's time to make them. The matter is much more complicated than it seems. I'll show you now. We're backlit, but it doesn't matter. I drilled through everything, so I kept a distance and we're good. So then the problem is that they're really long. Let me explain. As long as you use the anemone, you put it down like this, you take it, you position it, you push it down. Since the soil's nice and ready, 7 centimeters, you can do it. It's the 7 centimeter finger rule, which we all know very well. The problem comes with tulips. If you're lucky, the tulip will kick your ass. That's how it is. And it needs to go down 15 centimeters. Now, I tried this. The problem is that I probably messed up there too because the soil needed to be worked, planted right away, and dried. But it never ends. Guys, we have to do all this. And it becomes, if it's just me alone, and I don't think I managed to go down 15 centimeters by hand to make this space, which is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 30. And it took me about 15 minutes. Now, the point here isn't about not working hard, but about working smart and understanding basically how to do things well. So my idea is this, as you can see how I dig in, because the soil here is soft. I lay it on top. I have to remove the top I pull it all over there. I lay the tulips on top and then I go over it with a tractor and a roller. So I should be able to reposition everything correctly and they should be close enough together. I'd say we can do a test for this stuff. Now let's move on with the anemones and finish putting everything in order until the end. Then for the tulips, we need to find a better solution. Again, it's not about avoiding effort, but about finding quality options. Otherwise, I think we're doing a poor job. So first row made of anemones. Now we have to redo it. The problem with the tulips is what puzzles me the most. We need to figure out what to do. So good or not so good. The anemones were pretty quick to make. They're small. We can handle them. The problem is the tulips. Yes, I wanted to use that hilling system and so on. The problem is that now I'm here. I still have 2 hours of work left and I don't feel like stopping. But it's not good. It's not good. I can't set them down at the depth I want. The ground isn't right, like I said. No, we're not doing well. We're not doing well. I'm afraid I'm doing a half-assed job. No, I keep going because I'm planting them by hand. Basically, I dig the hole, I put them in, but I'm hurting myself. The holes are too small. I'm not doing as well as I'd like. More than anything, I don't know what to do. The soil isn't right because some parts are loose and some parts are still compacted. I can't give up. For now, I'll just keep going like this. We're not doing well. A few days later, the hurricane hit, but we're still going. I'll show you. So basically, I'm putting some soil on. The idea would be to increase the layer a bit. Sorry, it's wood chips, not soil, you see. We're adding a little more earth on top. So now I'll take it with the rake and pull it over. I don't know if it makes much of a difference, but it doesn't hurt to try. The biggest problem is that we made the hole too small, like in this case, so human fingers, let's say, would get stuck. Basically, you would hurt yourself. You saw how I hurt my hands even though I was wearing gloves. To clarify, I used non-leather gloves. Maybe I wouldn't have hurt myself if I had. So to recap, what have we seen so far? We saw how we worked the soil, and we saw that we fertilized our soil with a basic fertilization. Later, we will go back to apply a liquid fertilizer when our bulbs start to grow. We went to choose the sheet. We chose the planting layout, where we placed the bulb every 15 centimeters, so one flower. We looked at the list of flowers that we have planted for now, because we will plant the second batch of flowers when the temperatures rise a bit more, or rather after the colder months have passed, so around January or mid-February. The other batch, we planted all our bulbs with a number of special considerations. It was quite a big job, I have to say. Then we put some wood chips over the bulbs to add a few more centimeters and give our bulbs a covering layer. I'm not sure if I managed to get down to those 12 centimeters. That's maybe one of the questions we have. The instructions told us to go a little deeper, but we stayed a bit higher, around 10 centimeters. Also following various pieces of advice from people here who told me, look, the depth is because of the frost, so it's to protect the bulbs. Be careful, because if you plant them too deep, the first risk is that you'll have water stagnation in your soil. You also need some soil knowledge. And secondly, if you plant them too deep, mice, animals, and so on might end up eating the bulbs. There too, it's about experimenting from all angles. So here we've planted all our tulips. The other varieties, if I'm not mistaken, will plant the ranunculus in these 2 rows that are still empty for now, and we'll probably clear out that whole row of cabbages for the other flowers. The other flowers that will arrive and that I've scheduled will be planted right in these 2 rows. Now, as soon as we finish harvesting the cauliflowers, we'll remove them. Here, we'll experiment maybe with a different technique. So classic tarp, hole, and that's it. Let's experiment to see what works and what doesn't. So according to our schedule, we should be in production around March or April. Of course, you can easily do this for your own home as well. You know it all. You've seen the varieties and their purposes already. You can also go and put them in the garden, or you can put them in flower boxes. It's exactly the same process. Of course, in the coming months, we'll also be working on the marketing department, so we'll figure out how we can sell these flowers. This is the first episode of a series of episodes that we are going to make. We'll figure out the harvesting, the storage, basically a series of processes that I will tell you about in the upcoming episodes. And here it's really important to subscribe to the channel. Subscribing to the channel means not only supporting the series, but also being able to follow every single process. That way you can also get a very clear idea of what you can do with a certain amount of land. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please make sure to subscribe to the channel, give it a like, and leave a comment. If you have any advice, write it right below in the comments. If you have questions about the project or my preferences, let's discuss them in the comments. Farmer, see you in the next video. Bye, everyone.